Welcome to our 17th episode of the Final Bell on Halftime Network. Listen, I got a friend, an amazing person, amazing human being who I've been knowing for like 25 years, right? Let me tell you something. His name is Bruce Hagen. Most of you guys probably already know him. Probably the best, one of the best attorneys probably in the state of Georgia. And he's here as our guest today. Bruce, what's up, man?
I appreciate it,
hey,
Bo.
Man, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
It might be more than 25 years. You know, you and I aren't getting any younger.
I know. Well, I appreciate you coming, Bruce. And it's always good to have people on the show that coming from different perspectives. And let's just go right in. So, Bruce also, you love sports, that's for sure. So let's tell us a little bit about, what you do and how we met. Now, let's start off first about what you're doing. How we met.
Well, I'm a lawyer. I do personal injury cases, and so we represent injured people. But I didn't start my life doing that. I started out in a family of athletes. My dad was a college football player and a basketball player. My brother was 7 years older than me and was always an athlete. And so I was the little kid who was always chasing after the older kids and trying to keep up with them. And so from a very young age, it was a ball in my hand all day and roughhousing all day. And so, physicality and competition was just part of my way of growing up.
Wow.
So every opportunity for any sport that there was, I was in. Now, I grew up in New York City in the Bronx in the 60s at a time when you could leave the house in the morning and you just be out all day, and your mom would kind of check in on you, and then you'd be back in time for dinner. And like during those hours in between, it was every imaginable either sport or survival sort of competition that you were doing on the streets. So hitting a ball, throwing a ball, catching a ball, running. There was a lot of running. I got fast because I had to, So I just kind of grew up in that way. And then I was really fortunate as a kid to have great coaching. And it wasn't just from my school, but in the summers I would go to these camps where some of the greatest high school basketball coaches and high school football coaches from around New York City worked at the camps. I mean, in those days, these coaches didn't have as many coaches camps like you have now. Like the Bo Bell Basketball Academy has these fantastic camps that every kid who's listening should do, and every parent who has a child that's interested in basketball should get your kids in these camps because they're going to learn so much. Well, back then, they didn't really have that developed too well. There were a few of them, but not so many. So the basketball coaches, they worked the summer camps.
Right.
So I'm just a regular camper, but I'm learning from these guys who became some of the top coaches in basketball in the city. And so, I learned the value of hard work, the importance of defense, and the little things, footwork.
Right.
Not feet work. It was footwork. Feet work, registered trademark of Bo Bell basketball. No, footwork. But just little details, and would spend so much time on just, which way you pivot to box somebody out.
Sure.
Which way, you don't just set a screen, but how, as a player who's trying to work off a screen, to help the guy who's setting the screen do it effectively by the way that you're moving. And so, I didn't realize what these fundamentals meant at the time.
Wow.
But years later, so start playing in these rec leagues and realize, like, I'm doing things that these guys don't know how to do.
Right.
And were never taught how to do.
Right.
And I have a base of knowledge that guys didn't have because they never had a chance to do it. They may have played more, and they certainly may have had more natural ability than me, but they didn't know the game as well as I did and implement it. And so I was able to, achieve in sports at a level way beyond my physical abilities because of that kind of early level of coaching.
I love it. Well, let me ask you, Bruce, how important just those experiences playing sport, how did it help you leverage opportunities in your life? And also how it helped you to just stay mentally strong, right? How did it help you?
How much time do you have? Because this is a subject I could talk about for days. It helped me in more ways than I can really describe.
Wow.
So let me just try to summarize. From a competition standpoint, being able to compete in sports, and particularly team sports, helped me to develop leadership skills that I developed all through high school. Again, I wasn't the most talented athlete on my football team, on my basketball team, certainly in baseball, but I was the captain of every team I was ever on through high school. And it's because a certain leadership quality that came from this competition. That leadership quality followed me all through my career. I worked for a couple of different law firms when I got out of law school and went out on my own at a pretty early stage in the career. And it was those same leadership skills that I developed in sports that enabled me to craft my firm and craft a lifestyle that was suitable to the way I wanted to live my life, and to running a firm and to becoming the best lawyer I could be. The competition standpoint of it absolutely was a part of it, because I don't just want to be a lawyer for the sake of being a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer to win. I'm in it to win it. And that was the lesson early on. Now, I'm not one of those folks who has to win everything you do. Like, you and I could play ping pong, and it's not going to ruin my day if you beat me, even though I'm going to try to beat you. But I'm not going to cheat, and I'm not going to be a lunatic about it, right? And it's the same way in the rest of my life, too. I have perspective, and I think I have perspective because of lessons learned as a young athlete. That, I see these guys who never competed at that level that are way too unbalanced when it comes to how they approach competition now. The worst example that everybody has seen are the parents of youth sports athletes who think they're living their lives, through their kid, because they never competed as athletes themselves, or even if they did, they didn't learn it the right way, and so now they think that they have to live it through the success and failure of this child, and they put incredibly undue pressure on that kid. I've also done a lot of coaching of youth sports. I've run leagues in youth sports. I've done a lot of mentoring of kids and young athletes. And so all of this, to me, comes back to lessons learned on the field.
Well, let me say this, Bruce. Over the last 25 years, well, I guess it's been longer, since we've known each other. And we talked about sports more than we talked about anything. And we participated, we played in leagues together, etc. One of the things that I want to just let people know how genuine you are and the type of person that you are, because since I can remember, you have always been supportive. Like, you probably know every kid that got a scholarship out of my program over the last 25 years. Is because your support has helped so many kids. And those are things that he don't talk about, nobody talk about. But I want to let people know that because of this guy, Bobel Basketball Academy has helped thousands of kids. Anything, I go to him and ask him for. Like a couple of years ago, we took two buses to Orlando for the Nationals. Well, he supported us to do that, and I always appreciate you. And those are things that people don't know about Mr. Bruce Hagen.
Well, and I appreciate what you do, and I've watched your career blossom in so many different ways. As you've tried to figure things out, and you've gone through your own journey, and so I'm incredibly proud of the success you have and the things that you've done. And anybody who's watching this should know, success doesn't come with just a straight line journey. It does for some, but for most, it's an uphill battle with a lot of downhills, and it takes a lot of hard work, which again goes back to the lessons you learn in sports. So I appreciate you saying that, and what you do for kids helps them in ways that they don't even realize. Some of my favorite days of the year are when I get the opportunity to come to your camps and speak to the kids there, even for just 10 minutes, and just talking to them and hearing some of their questions. And I'm coming from outer space. You bring a professional athlete to their, they get it, right? And they worship those guys the way I worshiped the professional athletes when I was a kid. You bring in some lawyer in a suit, and they don't know what they're getting or why this person is standing in front of them. And it's hard for me to get across sometimes, like just how vital these things they're doing as young athletes can be to everything in the rest of their life. And I'll even take it another step further. Like, with you had a quality when we compete on the basketball court, similar to Nikola Jokic, am I saying his name right? In the sense who just won a championship with the Denver Nuggets, and with Jokic, you see him on the court, and you realize that this guy makes everybody around him so much better because he's selfless, he's team-oriented, he's about winning and doing what needs to be done to win. And anytime I ever played with you, whether it was in a 3-on-3 tournament or in a city league or occasionally sneaking you into the Lawyers League to play with us, you were always about that, because you could have scored at will, and yet you were out there to make everybody else play better and do better, whether it was by just setting them up to do it or getting in their face when necessary to do it. And you know how to motivate people differently because everybody is different. And that's a skill that is unique to you, and it's a skill I've tried to replicate in my own practice, operating a firm and having employees of like, okay, you can't treat everybody the same. As much as you try to treat people fairly, that doesn't mean everybody gets treated the same.
Right.
And you have to recognize that some people respond best to praise and to positive reinforcement, and some people respond best to a kick in the rear end. And either way, you have to know what it takes to get the best out of people.
So check this out, Bruce. So let's talk on Jokic. Over these we have these deep conversations because this dude is a sports fanatic. When I tell you sports, I mean he's a basketball sports Bible. You can ask him anything about sports, he knows. Basketball, football, everything. And some of the conversations we used to have in depth, and trust me, I couldn't hold conversations in depth about basketball with just anybody. And we used to have in-depth conversations about, okay, where is the game going? And I was telling him about my philosophy in terms of feet work, being efficient, being effective, and teaching kids how to be team players so that they have a legitimate opportunity to maximize their potential. And we had those conversations, and we was talking about how the Europeans, they play that way all the time. And that's where I adopted philosophy of playing really as a team player. Because when I first went to Europe, Bruce, I'm telling you, man, every time I went to the basket, I got marks right here. I'm trying to dunk the basketball. But when I saw the style of play, and this guy on my team, he was scoring 32 points a game. Bruce, he taking one dribble. Kind of remind me of Jokic. So I started working out with him. So long story short, just tell the audience, right? Because we saw it coming. We talked about it. Jokic is here. Like Bruce said, it's like if you're not efficient and effective and have a team first mindset, you're going to miss opportunities because the NBA, whether people agree or not, is a copycat league. And so they are right now got more scouts in Europe looking for more Jokic, right? While you guys here, all this stuff right here, everybody look like they're doing the same thing. So
no, you're right. I went to a couple of overtime elite games, and these are like some of the top level young players around the world because they really do have an international approach, and you can kind of see a little bit of difference in the kids who came over from Europe and the kids who were from this country. But look, I don't blame kids for wanting to be flashy, and certainly if you have the ability to do it, turn on SportsCenter every given night. You don't see the guys getting an offensive rebound and sticking back a shot unless it's a game winner. What you see are the guys raining threes from 35 feet and doing spectacular dunks on breakaways. And so, everybody wants to copy that. I get it. But at the same time, if you are not in that 0.1% of the athletes who can do that, then you have to have these fundamentals, and the game's going to get back to it. Unfortunately, you and I have talked about this too, about how the one and done system in college is really a disservice to the development of these young athletes. When kids could go straight to the NBA, we thought it was a disservice to athletes. I mean, there's one very famous NBA player who you coached as a kid, and you told me when he was in 7th grade that this kid's going to be the next Magic Johnson. He's the greatest thing you've ever seen. And I went to see him. It's like, he's amazing. But when everybody's telling him, go to the NBA, you were the sole voice of saying, hey, son, you need to develop your game a little bit more, and you'd be better off going to college and playing for a few years in college, and then the NBA will open up for you. This person ignored your advice and has had a great career nonetheless. But I think he also has come around and recognized that, Coach Bo was looking out for him at the time, even if he was too young and having too many voices in his ear to recognize it.
I think the player he's talking about is Lou Will, and he saw that whole relationship. But let's touch on this though, Bruce. there is no originality to the players of today because everybody's doing the same thing. And what's scaring me is I think everything starts from the grassroots. I think as a whole, we need to get some type of mandate or something where everybody's doing things collectively on the same page and from a development standpoint, because less is best. Fundamentals, see, a lot of the kids, they're putting the carriage before the horse. So they go and doing moves, but they don't even have the basic structure of the foundation. So I think if we do not get our hands around that part, the NBA opportunities are going to be far less.
Look, the video games don't help either because everybody wants to break somebody's ankles with a fancy dribble, and yet they don't know how to get to the basket.
Right.
So you see kids who can do fun things with the ball. Now they're carrying. I guess maybe if referees start calling carries again or travel, that might help a little bit.
Right.
But okay, so you can maneuver the ball and get a defender off balance. What good is it if you don't use that to then get to the rack and score?
Exactly.
So let me give you an example, because you brought me here as a lawyer to talk about sports and how they influence on my life. But I'll give you an example I see too, is that a lot of young lawyers, they only want shortcuts to success, and I suppose they're no different than anybody else in other fields as well. But I notice it more in my own field, and it comes up particularly in social media. Social media is a game changer in the sense that when I was coming up as a young lawyer, the way you became known was through developing skills and then achieving success. Well, now you don't have to develop skills or have achieved success as long as you can give the impression that you have both. And so your Instagram presence, your TikTok presence, you can create such a false narrative about your abilities, and underlying it, there may be nothing there. And I've had this conversation with young lawyers to say that if you don't have the fundamentals as a lawyer, you're going to get exposed. And it's no different in sports. I can have the nicest Jordans that are out there, and I can have the greatest looking shorts and cool shirt and headband and all this stuff. And the minute I walk on the court, I'm going to get exposed if I don't have the ability to go with it.
Absolutely.
I started playing golf in recent years. You can't fake a good golf swing. It's like you had to have learned along the way to have a good golf swing. And so, you can fake being a good lawyer to a point. And there are people out there now, they're making money because most of the public doesn't take the time to dig past this, just scratch the surface little impression they get from social media. But I'm telling you that if there's not substance there, whatever it is you're doing, whatever field it's in, it's not sustainable. You might have a great look to a restaurant, but if you can't make good food and deliver good service, you're going to go out of business.
I agree with you, Bruce. Let me ask you this. So how important in your field, you're an attorney, how important is it to acquire an attorney if you got legal issues that specialize in that specific area? Like in basketball, I specialize in player development. I don't train. For me, you train dogs, cats, chickens, and animals. You develop people. So it's a different approach because it's a mental piece that have to connect with the physical. So from your standpoint, how important is that for people to get someone that specializes in that specific area, that have the experience? And like you said, people don't dig no more because it's so artificial on the internet. So it makes it hard for them.
When you were growing up, did you ever watch the show Little House on the Prairie?
I did.
Right? So you and I are the same age. So Little House on the Prairie show took place in the 1800s with the westward expansion, right? And they're fortunate in town to have a doctor that was there, right? And it didn't matter what the problem was.
Right.
You saw that doctor, right? And that doctor treated you if you had consumption, or if you had diphtheria, whatever the problems of the day were, or if your foot got bitten by a wolf, or you got gored by a bull, it didn't matter, right?
Right.
And in today's world, we recognize that, if I have a problem with my foot, I'm going to a foot specialist.
Right.
If I have a problem that's a blood problem, I'm going to a blood specialist, or a respiratory specialist for a breathing problem, right? And it's happened in the law as well, where it's good to have somebody who has experience in different areas, but ultimately, if the guy who's helping you with your criminal case is also doing a divorce and writing a will and handling an eviction and doing somebody's estate planning and writing up a contract. They may be able to do all those things pretty well, but they're never going to develop enough of an in-depth knowledge of that specific area to be the best at it. And I learned this the hard way because I had at an early age went out on my own, and whatever you needed, that was my specialty. So I did a little everything, and it took a while to really kind of lock in on the one thing that I thought best at, that interested me the most, that I felt like I was really making a difference, and that was representing people in personal injury cases.
Right.
And when I started doing that only and turning away other work, that's when I really became good at it.
Right.
I remember handling somebody's divorce case, and there was a child custody issue of it, and I just felt like, I can do this, but the attorney who only does this is going to know so much more of the ins and outs of it than I am. And there's the most important thing in the world that's on the line here is this person's ability to continue to have a relationship raising their kids.
Right.
And as I can't take on that responsibility if I'm not the best that there is at it. And that's when that was one of the things that helped me realize that I need to focus only on this thing, even if it means I'm going to go broke in the process, because I had the patience to develop it. And that's something that, you're asking about, like the shortcuts that folks want to take. It's that folks don't want to put in the time to develop the good habits and the work ethic that you need to succeed. And it's the same reason why, you want to make $1 billion, come up with a diet pill that's going to help people drop 30 pounds, or that's going to, let's just stick to that one. Because, if you tell somebody, hey, yeah, you can lose 30 pounds, have the discipline to mind what you eat and be on a healthy nutritional plan, and the discipline to put exercise in your life every day so that you are living a healthy lifestyle, and put in that hard work, and you will lose that 30 pounds, right? As opposed to like, I don't want to work that hard. I could take a pill and lose the 30 pounds. I don't care if my organs dry up and fall out of my body. I'll do it, And so people would rather sit there and take Ozempic. They're not diabetic. They just want to lose weight rather than have the discipline to eat right and work out. And it's no different when you're coaching kids in basketball fundamentals. It's no different if you're trying to develop a skill set as a lawyer, as a plumber, as a chef.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Bruce, and all of that correlates because we have those same challenges working with these kids, because what happens is they're watching the internet, right? And so they see these guys doing all these different things, and they're trying to duplicate that, so they want to skip over. I was watching YouTube the other day, and Gary Payton was on, and he talked about, they asked him a question like, there's no more kids on the playground anymore. And he said, why is there no? And his answer was, well, kids don't play outside because one is they want everything to happen. They have a sense of entitlement, right? They don't feel like they have to work. And the other thing that he touched on was everybody want it right away. Nobody want to work for it. We should have to. He talked about, they got all these tennis shoes, and then he mentioned he spoke on AAU. He said because there's a lot of people involved. He said guys get the best 5 players they could possibly find and go out. He said the coaches are teaching them nothing. They go out and beat up people, and the kids not learning anything. And the biggest issue is people have devalued winning as a team, because in the summer, because these kids are watching, similar to what the attorneys and these young guys, they're watching these guys do all this fast, quick stuff and how it look, and so they are pretty much not focusing on the team. I've seen teams lose by 30 points with some of the best players. And they got all the best players. And the kids walking out, and they're talking about their stats, right? No concern about and they smiling and they just playing,
and they'll have a breakaway dunk, it's down by 30, and they strut like a peacock because they just posterize somebody.
Right.
And yet, you just lost this game by 30 points.
Yes.
This is one of the reasons why I think you were so successful as an AAU coach. It wasn't just that you had talented kids, which you did, but, you got them to coalesce and play as a unit and bring out the best in each other as a team, and you ran over everybody for years. And at the same time, folks are in it for the wrong reason, and they're just looking to develop a highlight reel that they'll get noticed. And it used to be, I want to get noticed by a college scout, and now it's like, I just want to get followers. I don't know. It's hard to completely blame them when you say like, all right, their high school kids can make money now.
Yeah.
College kids can make money now with NIL deals.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you've got 1 million people following you on social media. That translates into using that skill set to earn a living. Well, doesn't mean you're necessarily ready for it or that it's something you can do for the long term, because how are you going to be as an influencer when you can't dunk anymore? So, but you mentioned Gary Payton. He was always, one of those players that I just kind of modeled myself after, of a guy who's willing to, stick his face in somebody's chest and stick to them like glue.
That was you.
And bother the heck out of them. It's like, I wanted to be that guy that everybody wanted on their team and nobody wanted to play against because they were such a pest. And so,
well, speaking of that, Bruce, what you think about the transfer portal and the NIL? Just touch on that. I got my, I just think it's pros and cons with it, but I got my opinion. But I want to hear your. For
the transfer portal, look, I like that kids have some ownership of their careers. There was always an unfair imbalance where coaches could promise kids anything to come to that school, and then the kids were bound to stay there for their entire college career, or they had to give up a year of playing time, but the coaches could leave for a better deal on a moment's notice with no obligation to the kids. So I kind of like that standpoint that things are balanced out a little bit, but at the same time you create no loyalty whatsoever to the team, to your teammates, to the program, to the university. And so I feel like it hurts in that sense. I mean, look, I'm a Florida Gator. That's where I went. That's who I root for. Two of my kids went to University of Colorado, and so I love the Buffs as well. I'm excited for Coach Prime, right? And Coach Prime is bringing kids with him, and kids want to come play for Coach Prime. But what's going to happen in 2 to 4 years when Coach Prime has had enough at Colorado? Maybe FSU comes calling, whatever, and he's gone. Well, those kids are just going to leave Colorado and go somewhere else because there's no loyalty to the school. They're not there because they love the team, the program, their teammates. They're just there because it's fashionable at the moment, you know? Right. So I don't like that part of things. The NIL deal, yeah, I like that the universities that have been making so much money off of college athletes, that now the athletes can make some of that money too. But that doesn't mean kids are ready for it. I mean, look what's going on at the University of Georgia. Their athletes are getting paid. Used to be they got paid under the table, right? Now they're getting paid because of who they are. But, then a kid goes out and, buys some super fast car like they've seen in a movie that can go 100 miles an hour in no time. And how many kids on the Bulldogs team are either getting in trouble for speeding or, somebody got killed because these kids were racing in cars. And, when you're driving your grandfather's beat up old 30-year-old jalopy that can't go more than 30 miles an hour, that wasn't going to happen,
right.
If you even had the car. I mean, so there needs to be some sort of balance there. Sure. I mean, it's a fiction in today's world at major colleges to say that these are student athletes and that there should be enough gratitude for the educational opportunity that you're getting when the schools themselves are making a fortune off of these kids.
Absolutely.
But there needs to be some balance, and we've all seen in many different respects, I see it in my practice, just how dangerous it is for a kid to come into a large sum of money when they don't have any real foundation in their life that teaches them how to handle money, how to be responsible with your money, how to plan long term. You ask about my support for your programs, and one of the things that I've always loved about Bo Bell Basketball Academy is that you both have accountability from the standpoint that kids have to show up in the classroom and do their schoolwork, and you're going to provide support for them for that schoolwork. You provide lessons in financial literacy to these kids so that they understand the meaning of a dollar, what it takes to earn it, what it takes to save it, how you can have financial success. You're preparing kids for the rest of their lives through basketball. And I think I'm an example of how that can work, even though you weren't the one preparing me, but basketball and sports in general are what helped prepare me and set me up for success in my life. And so that's why it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to give back to you, because I see the difference you're making in kids, and would love to kind of keep up with them in their adult lives beyond their sports, just to see what they do with it.
I love it, Bruce. I love it. Well, here's my position on it, right? Because I'm more because I work with kids, right? I'm more on the holistic side of it. You know, I try to take that holistic approach because I know that we are trying to develop people and our young people, and we have an opportunity to reach them because between that, I guess the kindergarten to the 8th grade, their cups are not full. So those are the times that we can make the biggest impression on them and kind of hook them and give them the right information. And so for me, the transport portal, it's sending mixed messages. You know, if it's too hard, I want to transfer. If I don't like the coach, I want to transfer. If I don't like something, I want to transfer instead of fighting for what you want. And so trying to teach and convey what we do at this level, and then the kids seeing that at that level, it makes it very difficult to convey our messages now because of that.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see it. I mean, I remember there was a football player, eventually became the Falcons quarterback, a guy named Jeff George. But, you know, as a college player, he transferred real early in his career at a time when nobody was transferring. And when transferring meant sitting out a year. And it's like, this guy's just a quitter. You know, he doesn't want to compete. He's in coach's doghouse, or so at least he thinks. And, you know, the way you get out of that is by working hard and doing well, right? You know, people are in a doghouse. Do coaches hate kids? I suppose sometimes. But more often than not, it's like you're not playing to your potential. And the only way I can really get that out of you is by keeping you off the field, and you have to work your way back on it. And so do the work. No, I understand. Like, who wouldn't transfer out of Bobby Knight's program in today's day and age, right? I mean, they'd be in the transfer portal before they showed up on campus.
But I guarantee you, though, Bruce, those people are outstanding human beings because of those experiences.
Just ask somebody, right? I mean, that who motivated them. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's a mixed bag, most definitely. You know, kids are too willing to just give up, as opposed to put in that work and fight, and you know, and yet they're also rewarded for it too. So it's hard to knock it. You know?
I know it's hard, but when we look at it, Bruce, think about it. You even said it, and I said it as well. Those things that we learned has made us who we are today. So we have that sense of perseverance where we're able to fight because we quit. We had to fight all our lives, but the kids don't have to fight anymore. And so that's the scary part to me, is we trying to teach them how to fight, you know, how to be a good teammate, and, you know, if things don't work, make it work. Because, you know, a lot of people, nobody's going to give you have to go take it.
And it takes time. And I'll give you an example. I was interviewed by somebody recently who was doing a study on leaders and leadership. And so one of the questions that came up kind of caught me by surprise, like, who's a leader that you admire? And a lot of thoughts came in my head. It took me a minute to answer, and then the answer that I gave was Brian Snitker. Brian Snitker is the Braves manager, right? He's been the manager for several years now. But why is Brian Snitker a leader I admire? Brian Snitker worked in the minor league system for the Braves for about 30 years. He was position coach. He was coaching minor league teams at every level of the minors, and he was about young player development, helping these kids get better to get on to the next level, even if he didn't get on to the next level. And he put in all the time while at the same time maintaining a family-first attitude. He never took a job that pulled him away from his family. He kept his whole family close, and so he was there for his family, and he was there for his players. And over time, he developed the skill set. So as an older gentleman, when he got the opportunity to be the manager of the big league ball club, he got put up into majors as the Braves manager. He was the oldest manager in the league at the time. Well, now he's one of the winningest managers out there. He's won a World Series title as manager of the Braves, and his players will literally run through a wall for him. They love him, and it's because he's a player-first guy. He's a team-first guy. He never throws anybody under the bus. And at the same time, you know, you see him on the field after a game with celebration, he's grabbing one of his grandkids, or he's got his son or daughter by his side or somebody. He's always kept his priorities family first. And the ability to be a leader of athletes like that and still a family person, to me, that's the ultimate. And so that's a leader I admire.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, Bruce, let's jump in. Let's talk about some of the initiatives and some of the things that you do in the community. I know the bike, I brought you some bikes over there, as well as you gave us a bunch of blankets for our initiative with the Team Bobel. Let's talk about some of the initiatives and how important it is to give back to the community. Once you get through, to come back and say, okay, let me help somebody else. So let's talk about some of the initiatives.
Well, I recognize the position of privilege that I'm coming from, having worked myself up through a career where I went from having no money and a lot of debt, and to the point where now we've got a big firm and successful firm and personal success as well that has come from helping people. So I recognize the position that I'm in, and it would be, to me, just completely callous to be in that position and not utilize that to try to help other people when you can. So one of the things in my law practice is we represent a lot of people in the bicycle community. People get hit on bikes and they need help, or the law is unfair as it relates to bikes, so we need to advocate to try to do more to try to improve bike safety through passing laws, through training police officers, through talking to local and statewide governments about providing safe infrastructure for people on bikes, because that's a community that I'm a part of and that I serve. So one of the things we did was we became a donation point for a group called Free Bikes for Kids. And Free Bikes for Kids, we collect used children's bikes or adult bikes. We collect them all year round and we donate them to Free Bikes for Kids. We also volunteer to help them fix those bikes up, and come the holidays, they distribute those bikes throughout the community to families with kids that couldn't otherwise afford a bike. So
let me ask you though, Bruce, can you tell the audience if they got bicycles where they could bring them?
Well, my office is right in downtown Decatur. I'm directly across the street from Decatur High School. So it's 119 North McDonough Street in Decatur. Look me up on the interwebs. It's hagen-law.com. It's a cool website. All our information is there. But 24/7, anybody can drop off a bike if they need to. And what we've started doing with Free Bikes for Kids now is they do donations, or they distribute to the community twice a year. So once at the beginning of summer, so kids can get on the bike right when they get it, and another time kind of around Christmas so kids can get something for the holidays. And the freedom that a child has when they can have a bike of their own to get around, and that sort of independence that you develop with that, it's just a great part of their development, and kids should have the opportunity to do that. So that's one of the things we do. You came to me with your outreach to the homeless community around Atlanta, and just trying to do something as simple as a blanket giveaway. And so, we put everybody to work and pitched in and collected all the blankets we could get our hands on.
Appreciate it, man.
New and cleanly used, to do that. So, after participating with your blanket collection effort, that led us to working with a group called Nicholas House, which is really focused on trying to keep displaced families together, so that if somebody runs into hard times and they've got children, they're not always able to stay together in the shelters themselves. And so Nicholas House provides an opportunity to keep the family unit intact while folks are trying to get back on their feet again and trying to be able to get independent housing. So it's a great opportunity to try to help the Atlanta community with a problem that affects everybody, whether they want to admit it or not.
Well, see, the thing is, Bruce, nobody is immune to the problems that life may bring you. None of us. And we doing something similar with this homeless shelter for children, and it's a transitional home. And we take blankets, and some of the kids we go and get a van, and we bring them to the gym. And then some of the kids, they are temporarily, because they displace them, they send them to different homes. But those type of initiatives, man, just having a servant heart to help someone else, the universe kind of brings the right energy back to you. And I just think more people should, and you got a lot of people, and for those of you who are, in the community helping people, and because this is a tough time for a lot of people after the COVID thing, and anything that we can do to help, and you have always, and I'm telling you since I've known you, man, and that's one of the things that make me I just love you for that. And I'm gonna always say that. Me and my wife, Regina, we always talk about, man, Bruce, you're amazing, man. So I really appreciate you.
Well, thanks for saying it.
Let me say this to you. I want to say this, Bruce, because you have, it was times in my life personally where you was there when, I didn't have nobody to be there for me. And you never know. You didn't even know that, but you was there for me, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on the show. That means so much. But I got to ask you one more thing. Who's your best team in the NBA? Hold up before you go. And then who is the best basketball player in the world today? That's the last question.
I don't think I can answer that one. World's a big place.
I know.
You know, last I saw, but there's a lot of talent out there. I wish I could say it was Trae Young because I love my Hawks, but I don't know. Trae's on the list maybe, but he's not there yet, and I don't think he's ever going to be.
Who is it and why? Who is it and why, Bruce? Who is it and why?
Well, look, you could say Jokic because he's the champ. And he's the best player in the best league in the world, on the best team in the world. So you could certainly say that, and you wouldn't be wrong. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. You know, my team. I grew up a Knicks fan. The Knicks had some great teams in the '70s, and it was an easy team to root for. They had led by the captain Willis Reed, who died recently, who was most famous for nothing more than just being willing to jump into a game and play hurt. And inspire his team. I mean, he didn't do it, but he inspired everybody just by his presence.
Right.
So
today, Bruce, who is it today? Today.
You're going to make me say LeBron, and I'm not going to say it.
Come on,
I know
Bruce.
where you're trying to get me.
Look at Bird over there.
I'm not going to say LeBron.
Come on, Bruce.
So don't even. All right, I'm going to say Jokic. He just won the championship.
All right, you take Jokic. All right, so I'm going to give you mine. Today in the NBA, the best player in the world is Jokic. I'm going to tell you why. You hit it. And it's just my opinion. We've been talking about this forever. Is because all the things that you touched on earlier, like he's a team player. He doesn't play for, he's selfless, right? He plays, he's playing for the team with everything that he does. He has a basketball IQ that's off the charts. And he's so efficient and effective. Like Bruce, it's almost like he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Well, you see his IQ in his passing ability,
Yes.
you know, and people marvel at what a good passer he is. Well, what makes you a good passer? First of all, you're trying to set up other teammates as number one. But number two, it's knowing where people are on the court. And that's knowing where the defense is and knowing where your teammates are and trusting. Right, and so when you have that level of knowledge of the game, it's the same thing that made Larry Bird such a great passer in his day. Right. You know, is having that knowledge of the game. Yes,
and then on the other hand, on to piggyback on what you said about the passing, in order to be a really good passer, you got to be a willing passer. Like he's a willing passer. You got some guys, they'll pass the ball when they don't have anything else to do with it, right? And so it's not the right play, it's out of time. But everything he do, it's like it's in rhythm and it's in timing. And the players they cut, look, Bruce, at that level, if you know you're gonna get the ball when you're gonna get, it's easy to score.
Well, this is why I keep thinking that the Hawks should be able to attract big-time free agents. It's like, how can you not want to play with Trae Young when you know you're going to get at least 3 or 4 beautiful passes, alley-oops, easy buckets every single game? Just come to the Hawks. We need you.
Bruce loved the Hawks, man.
We need you.
He recruited for the Hawks. Hey, man, thank you so much, man.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. Hey, we out, man. Till next time. Thank you.